Jeremy Roach, Baylor Bear.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Friday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. We're your hosts. That's my guy, Andy Patton. I'm Isaac Shade, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch today. Reminder that every episode is brought to you ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers and all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. This show today is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet. If it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. Go check it all out at FanDuel.com. You smell that? That is the oven warming up. Mama's in the kitchen because we're getting ready for the turkey. Today we got a whole bunch of Feast Week appetizer MTEs coming at you. Some great standalone games as well, headlined by Duke returning the back end of the home and home series to Arizona this year. And Andy, the starting point, we had some absolutely fantastic games that ran parallel to one another to kick off the Legends Classic and the Baja Mar down in the Bahamas. It was kind of wild because we had two teams, St. John's and Texas, get out to big leads. One held on, the other didn't. And Andy, the wild thing about it is you and I, like literally, we were recording this like 5 minutes after Jeremy Roach hit that buzzer beater for Baylor in double overtime. The crazy thing is we had everything pre-written with St. John's at the helm, and then Zuby Ejiofor misses a few free throws, and that's all she wrote, baby. Andy, what the heck happened to the Johnnies?
What an incredible game. I mean, this was just as advertised. We knew it was two teams that were close to each other, KenPom. They were close to each other in the AP poll. Two phenomenal coaches, two of the 10, maybe 5 best in the game right now, in Rick Pitino and Scott Drew. And I don't know if you could have even projected this game to deliver as much as it did. This was fantastic. St. John's jumps out to a huge lead. Right before halftime, Devin Smith blocks a 3-point attempt by Rob Wright. He's like high-fiving fans. They're up 15 points. They're up 18 at one point. Like, it just looked like this thing was over. We were going to have conversations about, okay, are we starting to get concerned about Baylor? You know, they got blown out by Gonzaga. Now they're getting wrecked by St. John's. What does this mean for them, et cetera, et cetera? And then the whole story flips in the second half. Baylor comes out calm, composed, collected. Then they kind of looked like they were going to throw it away towards the end of this game. It just kept going back and forth, an absolute chess match. And you mentioned Zuby Ejiofor, and I want to talk about him because I feel awful for the kid. You missed two free throws at a clutch moment where you just needed to make. I mean, you should have made 2 of them, but you can't miss both of them. I mean, that was just devastating for this team. And the thing that sucks is this was such a great game for Zuby. I talked about that on the preview episode on Thursday's episode, talking about how I thought the big matchup in this game was going to be between Omier and Zuby. And if Ejiofor plays, a really good game, that should be an advantage for St. John's. And he was great. 22 points, 10 rebounds, 8 of 10 from the field. I mean, he had one of the best games of his career, yet he was 6 of 12 from the free throw line. And that's what did it. I mean, that's what did it right there. Those 2 misses at the end. Jeremy Roach hits that clutch shot. What an incredible game. Devastating loss for St. John's, who clearly can hang with teams like this, deserve to be in the conversation, but weren't able to get the W here when they should have.
Andy, I think what you just said there at the end is critically important. Whoever won this game, we got to see that both teams matter and belong and are going to be hanging around this season. To your point, though, it wasn't just Ejiofor's free throws. St. John's as a team, Andy, shot 57.1% from the stripe, while Baylor was only slightly better at 60.9%. So not a great day at the free throw line for either team. And Andy, what's kind of weird is as far ahead as St. John's was, Baylor took a lead for the first time with 240 to go. Yeah. Then a Jeremy Roach 3 put him up 77-74 with about a minute something left. And then nothing. They didn't score again the rest of regulation. They settled for a 3 at the end of regulation. They settled for like a mid-range jumper at the end of the first overtime. And the possession right before Roach's game-winning 3, they couldn't get much going either. Now, Andy, I say that as a negative to Baylor. Let me flip it, because you and I were just talking about, thought St. John's played really good defense on all 3 of those possessions, and credit to them for sure. But ultimately, man, Roach's big shot is what wins the day. And it's, as you said, it kind of stinks because so much of the rest of the game gets washed away because of this highlight reel ending.
Yeah, it was such a fantastic game of basketball. Both these teams shot well over 50% from three. Both these teams struggled from the free throw line, like you said. St. John's was 14 of 24 from three. Baylor was 14 of 23 from the free throw line. Just like a weird dichotomy in this game, but really fun to watch these two teams go at each other. This felt like an Elite Eight type matchup. Be interested to see if both these teams are able to get into that position. Again, they got two of the best coaches in the game. But I did want to kind of talk about the other game. And like I said, we're going to try to lump these two games together because they both seemed like they were following the same trajectory. We had St. John's get out to a big lead and then blow it. And then Texas got out to a big lead against Syracuse. And then Syracuse crawled all the way back. And then Texas was able to win. It looked like St. John's was going to do the same thing as Texas. Unfortunately for the Johnnies, they were unable to do so, but Texas does pull out a 70-66 victory. This is part of the Legends Classic. These games in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center right now. Texas led by 16. Syracuse literally erased that entire lead, but then there were some free throws at the end of the game. Texas was able to knock them down in a way that Syracuse was not. The Longhorns 12 of 14 from the line. Syracuse 9 of 18. Once again, just like it was with St. John's, free throws end up being a killer for Red Autry and the Orange. Longhorns get themselves a nice win here.
Yeah, Andy, I mean, it's so, you know what's funny? I actually realized as you were talking, St. John shot better from the three-point line than the free throw line. That's so sad. Anyway, yeah, thankfully in this game, we saw where one team was able to hit their free throws and the other wasn't, and that ultimately is what wins this thing for Texas, right? Like 12 of 14 versus 9 of 18, man, that'll do it for you. Syracuse shot miserably from three, 5 of 21, and that's not going to do it. But for Texas, gets contributions from a lot of dudes. Trey Johnson had a rough game, Andy. You know, we've seen him play so well this year. You're going to tell us why you're very sad about that here in just a little bit. But like, look, he kept shooting, and that's what I like to see from him. I think that's more important, is that he didn't let his misses get him down, and ultimately finished this game with 16 points, tied for the game lead with his teammate Arthur Kaluma, who fouled out, and Syracuse's JJ Starling. And Andy, you know what? Like, kudos to Syracuse for fighting back in this thing, because Texas got off to like a 9-0 start. Orange could have folded up shop and headed back to, you know, just being done for the night and lived to play tomorrow, but they didn't, and that's good news for Red Autry's club. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, this is a Syracuse club that hadn't lost coming into this game, but had not really played well either. They needed double overtime to beat Youngstown State. I think their other two games were bye games that they won by single digits. They were kind of just skating by, and then they go out and get immediately boat raced by Texas. They're down double figures early, and that could have been like, you know, a really rough moment in the season for them. They could have folded. They could have ended up getting beat by 20, 25 points, you know, a sloppy, lazy second half. And instead they come out, they tighten up on defense, which has been the issue for them. Trey Johnson was 4 of 18 in this game. And Texas is a team they need Trey Johnson to play well for them to win, especially with Tremont Mark hurt. This team is really reliant on their starting five. They're really reliant on Johnson and Kaluma and Caden Shedrick up front and Jordan Pope. And Johnson didn't really have it in this game. Again, he kept shooting. He kept trying to find his looks because that's what the Longhorns need him to do. But I think a big shout out to Syracuse for finding a kind of a critical moment in their season of like, hey, are we going to have another bad game? Are we going to, you know, take a loss? And they do take a loss, but they fight back really strong. And I thought that was a performance that could actually help them kind of gain some momentum going forward this year.
That said, Syracuse is outside the top 100 at KenPom, even after this result, Andy. That's unfortunate and disappointing. By the way, we saw some potential injuries scattered throughout the night, so we're going to keep our eyes on it. Like VJ Edgecombe, going back to the first game, was in and out for Baylor. Looked like Kadari Richmond got banged up a little bit, so hopefully just some cramping on that, and we'll see what happened. Andy, as for the other game in each of these things, in the Baja Mark, because as we record, as I said, we started this like 5 minutes after that game ended. So we're still waiting on the tip from Tennessee and Virginia. Obviously, that game won't be over before we finish recording, but the winner will play Baylor. The loser will play St. John's. That's going to happen tomorrow. The third place game, 7 o'clock Eastern on CBS Sports Network. And then the championship game, obviously the Virginia-Tennessee winner against Baylor, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. As for the other one, Legends Classic, That second game's going right now. St. Joe's up 30-21 on Texas Tech with 6.5 to go before halftime. That winner will play Texas at 9 on ESPNU. That loser will play Syracuse at 7 on ESPNU as well. Andy, great stuff there from both of these events.
There's some really fun games to watch on Friday evening, including the championships of both those games. But I think a lot of people are going to have their eyeballs on a different game that's going on Friday night. Duke taking on Arizona. We're going to talk about that game and a few other non-MTE games that folks want to pay attention to this weekend. All that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, PrizePicks is the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players given stat for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. I'm grateful that PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my winnings in as fast as 15 minutes. You can sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5. You don't even have to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Like Isaac said earlier, I'm a little annoyed at Trey Johnson. I put 18.5 as the more for him. I thought Syracuse's defense was going to not look as good as it did in that game. He ended up finishing with 16. But that's the joy and the fun of PrizePicks. Definitely, if you haven't joined it, it is absolutely fantastic. So much fun. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, Isaac, looking ahead to the games this weekend, we could have a 4-hour show just trying to preview all of the marquee matchups on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this weekend. It is Feast Week, like you said, an appetizer for Feast Week. So we're going to take this segment to talk about the non-MTE games, just some standalone contests. 9 of them here. We'll talk about a few of them. And then we'll close out the show talking about the other MTEs that are going on, some of the games to keep an eye on in that area. But Isaac, we start with Friday, the most anticipated game of the weekend, one of the most anticipated games in all of college basketball. We'll see if it can live up to Baylor St. John's, because boy, did that deliver for us. But we got Duke on the road at Arizona, number 12 Duke, number 17 Arizona, 2 teams coming off early season losses. This game is at 10:30 Eastern time on ESPN2. FanDuel, Arizona by 1.5. That is a late game. Obviously, it is in Arizona, so that's why it's so late. But, man, got a feel for the East Coast fans who are going to have a hard time staying up for that one. But, man, this is going to be a fantastic game of basketball on Friday.
And, Andy, what you just said is something I was thinking about actually earlier today. Either Arizona is going to be 2-2 or Duke is going to be 3-2. Either way, whichever fan base that is going to be hurt, like frustrated, and is the sky is falling and all this. And I think it's made even more interesting because Arizona went to Cameron Indoor and won last year at Duke 78-73. And so that's going to be really interesting. And I think we see, for these Duke Blue Devils, which is the younger of the 2 teams, although of course they've got a good bit of experience with Tyrese Proctor, with the transfers that come in, Mason Gillis and Sion James, those guys. But there's so much young talent that Duke will be relying on in their first ever true road game in the regular season. I'm just always curious to see how freshmen respond to that. Now, the thing is, these Duke freshmen are all so well experienced, so well talented. They've been in situations like this, but still, you're really curious to see how they react. And so I think win or lose, that's a win for John Shire to get his guys in this environment.
Yeah, I think that's the key. You want to play true road environment games early in the season when you have a freshman-laden team. And for Arizona, their first road game of the year was they got punched in the mouth by Wisconsin, gave up over 100 points. So, it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that game at home, taking on a Duke team that has the offensive firepower to do the same thing to them, to score 100-plus points. But can Tommy Lloyd and the Wildcats tighten up the defense? Can they exploit a younger team that hasn't played on the road? I mean, there's just so much intrigue in this game. Caleb Love playing against Duke after his career at North Carolina. There's just so much about this matchup that's going to be incredibly exciting. It's one of 3 games on Friday that we wanted to touch on. We don't have to spend as much time on the other 2. Nebraska going on the road to take on the 14th-ranked Blue Jays of Creighton. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern Eastern time on FS1. No FanDuel line for that as we're recording right now, although Ken Pom favors the Blue Jays by 11. And then Mississippi State Bulldogs going on the road at SMU, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. That one is on ESPN Plus or the ACC Network. Ken Pom favors the Cowbells by 2 in that one.
Yeah, you did. I'm so proud of you. Andy, let me say one quick other thing about Duke and Arizona.
Yes.
Folks, if you have not looked at Duke's upcoming schedule, listen to this.
Yeah.
At Arizona tonight, Kansas on a neutral on Tuesday. That's in Las Vegas. They play Seattle, and then they host Auburn in the ACC SEC Challenge. So that's 3 of their next 4 games are Arizona, Kansas, and Auburn. That is a brutal schedule. Andy, I also wanted to get your pick in that Duke-Arizona game.
Ooh.
Arizona minus 1.5.
Give me Duke. I think Arizona's defense is just so questionable, and I think Duke's going to find a way to exploit that. It's going to be close. Give me Duke by, I'll say 5.
I was going to go Duke 3. And so I'm right with you. I think that's the thing. And this is going to be the first big time win for this young Duke team. And I do think they go and kind of return the favor, if I can put it that way. Anyway, I didn't want to take away from moving on to Saturday, but just wanted to mention Duke's schedule and get your pick on it. So then moving on to Saturday, the kind of key marquee games we get there are, look, this is not the battle for Atlantis. That doesn't start until Wednesday. But there's kind of interestingly these standalone games down at Atlantis on Saturday and Sunday. The first of which is 15th ranked Marquette against Georgia, 11 a.m. Again, down in Atlantis. Unfortunately, it's on Flow College. Ken Pom, has it Marquette minus 7. And so Andy, Marquette, man, they've been playing some games lately here.
Yeah, big shout out to Shaka Smart. I mean, you mentioned Duke and their schedule, and they deserve credit for that, of course. I know Alabama, we've mentioned their schedule a few times, but Marquette is playing a competitive schedule as well. And I was kind of down on Marquette. I was willing to kind of stay that on the show a handful of times. I thought they'd lose to Maryland. I wasn't super confident about them going into that Purdue game, and yet they win both of them. Shaka Smart's team looks really good. Cam Jones, obviously just outstanding. They're favored against Georgia. They should be favored against Georgia. There's some pieces I like on this Georgia team. Silas Tamari is a player that I think is very talented and could be a problem for Marquette in terms of how they're going to defend him. Asa Newell, freshman for Georgia, is a player I'm really excited about. He's a great rebounder. He's a floor spacing big, 6'10" lefty who can score around the rim. He can stretch the floor. He's a good rebounder. Like I said, he's a guy that I think could give Marquette some issues too, but this Shaka Smart's team should win this one. I don't know how Georgia's going to stop Cam Jones. Few people have figured out how to do that. So give me Marquette in this one. But yeah, just another shout out to both these teams, but really a shout out to Marquette for playing a competitive non-conference schedule filled with a lot of power conference teams.
Yeah, they win this game. That's 7. It feels a little big, but I think they can do it, Andy. Give me Marquette by 10 in this one as they keep the train rolling after big wins over both Purdue and who am I missing? Who they
Maryland.
Just beat? Maryland last weekend and then Purdue this week. Andy, the other interesting game, speaking of shout out to Wes Miller for taking his Cincinnati team, 18th ranked in the country, down to Atlanta to McCamish Pavilion to take on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. That's Saturday at 2 on ESPN Plus, ACC Network Extra. Ken Pom has it Cincinnati minus 8. And then just another kind of intriguing road game. Shout out to Stanford going on the road to play Santa Clara. That's at 10 Eastern Saturday on ESPN Plus. Ken Pom has it Stanford minus 1. Andy, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say some fun games here, and we're recording right now as Oregon State gets tipped off, and it's a friendly reminder that Stanford at Santa Clara and Oregon at Oregon State are both ACC versus WCC games. That's all I have.
It's so wild. What are we doing here? Andy, that Marquette Georgia game is not the only standalone game down in Atlantis that leads up to the battle for Atlantis. We also on Sunday have St. John's. They're just sticking. I love this, man. What a great call by Rick Pitino. Whoever his Dobo is that scheduled this, man, well done. So St. John's plays these 2 games in Baja Mar. Then they're just staying down there. And on Sunday, going to play Georgia. So Georgia, quick turnaround after Marquette. 2 ranked teams for the Bulldogs, man. Kudos there to Mike White. But 11 a.m. CBS Sports Network. Ken Pom has it Johnny's minus 6. And then I feel like there's another game, but maybe I'm just crazy. No, it's just those 2, the Marquette, Georgia and St. John's, Georgia, that are happening down there. And so, Andy, I think this is cool, man. These standalone games, Georgia kind of making their own MTE. It's rad. Way to go.
Yeah, good on Georgia for real. Like that's fun to play two ranked teams that they expected would probably be ranked by the time this game rolled around. For a Georgia team that isn't expected to be a tournament team, isn't expected to finish in the top 10 of the SEC just because of how competitive that league is, go out and get yourself some really challenging games. Like kind of test your mettle a little bit. It's a young team for Georgia. Demari's a sophomore, New as a freshman. Like go out and play these good teams. And it's obviously great for Marquette and St. John's to play a quality team like Georgia. They're not, elite. It's not a top tier game, but it's a good quality game for both teams, all three teams involved in this. So I'm excited about this one. I think Georgia's probably going to come back 0-2, but I think they'll play competitive. I think they'll play close with both these teams. And ultimately for Georgia, they will get better because of playing these two games. If it helps them compete in certain SEC matchups, maybe finish a little higher in the standings than they thought, then they're going to be very happy, even if they don't win either of these games.
Yeah. Andy, a couple other games on Sunday, just that we've got our eyes on. I think Charleston at Rhode Island is a really interesting game to me. This is at noon on ESPN Plus. KenPom has it fighting Lamar Odom's -5. That's interesting. Villanova at not at Maryland, but against Maryland, noon Sunday on ESPN at the Prudential Center. KenPom has it Maryland -4. And so really interesting stuff there. That should be a lot of fun. But Andy, we're just getting started. This is wild, man. This is one of the best weeks of the entire year. Multiple MTE championships are going to be determined over the weekend, and we're going to give you our thoughts on how these tournaments might shake out. And there's a whole bunch more that we can't even touch on because it's so many. Just dive in and enjoy the ride. That's all we can tell you. We'll talk about them all coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about ZBiotics, which is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink and the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by some PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings that happen after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut, and it's that byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough morning you got the next morning. Well, pre-alcohol produces this enzyme that breaks that byproduct down. So that's super helpful. Just remember, make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, stay hydrated, Andy Patton, and you're going to feel your best tomorrow. If you want to go check this out, man, again, pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep, but make ZBiotics your first drink. Learn more, zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege. Get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they're going to refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head over to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for 15% off.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Folks, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Right now, we got bets for who's going to win the Maui Invitational and the Battle for Atlantis, the top three teams for each of those tournaments. For Maui, UConn is at +170. Auburn is next at +310. Feels a little low for the Auburn Tigers, I would say. North Carolina is next at +400. And then the Battle for Atlantis, you have the Zags at +135, followed by Arizona at +180. And then Indiana, the Hoosiers, are next at +600. If you like those odds, if you like any of the other tournaments coming up, we're going to talk about a few of them here in a second. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, Mr. Shade, closing out the show, talking about some of the other MTEs that are going to take place Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then, of course, next week, we'll get you all ready to go for the Maui Invitational, Battle for Atlantis, ESPN events, all the other fantastic tournaments taking place as part of Feast Week. I want to talk on the Charleston Classic. The day 2 games are taking place tonight, or today, I should say. The first semifinal game, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, ESPN2, Drake versus FAU. Those were your two winners. The mid-major teams beat Miami and Oklahoma State, respectively. They will play in the consolation game at 2 p.m. on ESPNU. The other side of that bracket was the opposite. The high major teams won. Seton Hall will take on Vanderbilt at 5 p.m. on ESPN2. Seton Hall defeated VCU, and Vanderbilt defeated Nevada. I think both those games were within a possession of each other. Some fun basketball there. VCU will take on Nevada on ESPN Plus at 7:30 p.m. And then the championship, third place, fifth place, seventh place game will all take place on Saturday. Isaac, how are you feeling about where we're at with this tournament after we've gotten the first day's results?
I think what shocks me, because it just kind of happened in real time, Andy, is the fact that Vandy, Jerry Stackhouse is out the door. The Commodores are 5-0 all of a sudden. I mean, it's not like they're, have played all these crazy good teams. It's Maryland, Eastern Shore, Southeast Missouri. They beat Cal though by 16 points, Andy.
Yeah.
And then
Nevada team's good.
And Nevada's good. They were undefeated, 38th at Ken Palm. Ken Palm, since it literally just happened, Ken Palm hasn't updated yet, but I mean, like some good wins. The Nevada win is by far the best win of the year. So I think that's my reaction in real time, but really interesting to see, as you were just referencing there. I think it's pretty neat to see these mid-major, Drake upsetting Miami, FAU, who was down to Oklahoma State, the majority of that game, upsetting things. And it's funny, I think we get some of the matchups we expected, just not in the part of the bracket we expected.
Yep. Big shout out AJ Hogard, by the way. 18.7 assists for Vanderbilt. He's been playing really good ball with the Commodores after spending half a decade or more at Michigan State. He's now seeming to kind of found a new gear with Vanderbilt, so that's cool to see for him. We also got another couple other MTEs to talk about. The Greenbrier tip-off.
First year of this. Brand new event.
Brand new event, and it is in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia.
What?
That is a town that people have heard of. Not me, but people
have. I tend to vacation there often, Andy. It's a very exotic locale out in the cold.
Honestly, it's probably beautiful. I have no idea. Either way, our two matchups there: Pitt LSU, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, CBS Sports Network. Ken Palm favors Pitt by 5 in that one. I kind of like that one a lot. I think Pitt might be the third best team in the ACC, which is in part because Wake hasn't stepped up to be that team. No. Miami hasn't stepped up to be that team. Clemson hasn't stepped up to be that team. So we'll see if Pitt can solidify it. And then our other game, Wisconsin, the 19th ranked Badgers taking on Central Florida, 5 p.m. on the CBS Sports Network. Ken Palm favors the Badgers in that one by 2.
First off, Andy, kudos to this event for getting some great teams into it in year one. It was one of those where there was like a campus game for each of these high major teams against a lower major team. And now the lower teams are playing and these four are playing. I'm with you on Pitt, man. They're 15th at Ken Palm right now, Andy. I mean, that's crazy. I don't think a lot of people are realizing that. Wisconsin, we're going to see what they do. So the game, that they won at home last weekend. Completely blanking on who they just beat that we unexpected.
Arizona.
Good grief. Thank you. Arizona, who's now looking for payback against Duke. And then they turned around and almost lost to UTRGV the next day. Well, that was their campus game for this Greenbrier event, by the way. So this is an opportunity. I know UCF, they're like fine, right? But now we get to see and learn a little bit more about Wisconsin. That's probably somewhere in the middle of those two games, if we're being honest.
Third place game for that tournament will take place on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports. Championship will be after that, also on the CBS Sports Network. Last event I want to talk about here, the Hall of Fame Classic, which this event is now just one day. Kind of sad to see this event not be what it used to be. Your two games that you have there, both games taking place on Saturday or Friday. I'm actually not sure which day.
You just talk about the games.
You'll figure it out. Yeah, it's at the T-Mobile Center, whichever day that it is in Kansas City. Utah State taking on Iowa at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Ken Palm favors the Hawkeyes by 1. That's going to be a really fun game. Utah State has been playing some great basketball lately. I'm a little surprised that they are not favored, actually. And then you got St. Louis taking on Wichita State, 10:30 Eastern on Peacock. Ken Palm favors the Shockers by 2 in that one.
Andy, this is tonight, Friday. But I mean, to your point about this event, like I went several years ago. It was like the 15-16 season, and it was like Mizzou, K-State, TCU, and no, not TCU. K-State, Northwestern. I knew it was two purple teams and Mizzou. So it was like, man, that was a great event, but you just hate it when, bring back the Great Alaska Shootout while we're at it. Come on.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today. There are literally so many other games either currently happening right now as we're recording the show. Watching Memphis and San Francisco. There's tons of other games this weekend. We just cannot get to all of them, unfortunately, but we're going to have our eyes peeled for watching for some of the best upsets. Yeah.
Have you seen what's happened in Tennessee, Virginia in real time?
No, what is happening in Tennessee, Virginia?
It's the most Tennessee, Virginia thing. We are 3 minutes into the game. Mm-hmm. Goose eggs 0-0 right now, right? Like if that's not a Tennessee, Virginia thing, I don't know what is.
St. John's, Baylor score a combined 200 points, and these two teams might not combine to score 75. We'll see.
Oh, Tennessee just scored. We have points. There goes the shutout, Andy Patton. It's over.
The shutout is over.
By the way, St. John's, Texas Tech just went to halftime.
St. Joe's, Texas Tech.
I said St. John's, excuse me. I'm like literally looking at it. St. Joe's, the fighting Jameer Nelson's up 10, 45-35 at the halftime, Andy. Get us out of here.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. But folks, thank you so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate it. Making us your first listen, your first watch of the day. We're going to be back next Monday. We're going to have a bonus show between now and then. So definitely keep your eyes on the Locked On College Basketball feed, whether it's on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have some more content for you there. But then we got Feast Week next week in its entirety. Maui. We got Atlantis. We got ESPN events. We got a fun matchup between Illinois and Arkansas on Thanksgiving. We got the Duke Kansas game. So many fantastic basketball games to preview.
Players era.
And the Players Era Festival. We can't even forget that one. Some fun games there as well. Wow. It is going to be an incredible week of basketball. We're going to be here with you every single day, reacting to all of these fantastic games. Folks, thanks again for listening. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wildcats. Talked about plenty of them today. And until next time, peace.